right now we're at in a where are people on famous album covers. I was about to say thumbnails for some reason, but it's album covers.
Extremely important. And there are a ton of iconic song and album covers that feature the artists themselves or some sort of artwork. But there are also some classic covers that feature just random people. So today we're going to be looking into where these random people on famous album covers are in the description below, and now let's continue. Also, again, real quick, I'm close to 500k, and if we could hit that by like Christmas, like a little Christmas gift to myself, that'd be pretty dope. So yeah, maybe subscribe. That'd be dope. I'd appreciate it. An album cover that immediately came to mind when I saw Astromancy's video was Look at Me by X, and I just had to talk about it. In 2015, when X was putting out his song Look at Me and picking covers, the song went through a few changes, whether it be the OG cover
Wait, hold on. I just
or the
forgot.
mugshot picture. But one of the covers featured on one of the versions of the song was a 12-year-old kid with a blunt in his nose, which very
Mm. I think this dude used to be famous on TikTok. I don't really know, but yeah.
quickly became one of the most iconic images in the underground rap scene and the overall community, in part because of the virality and craziness of the song, but also because it's pretty strange to have a 12-year-old kid with a blunt in his nose. And that kid was actually another rapper named Kid Pronto. Kid Pronto had actually sent the picture directly to X in a group chat. He was from the same city as X and involved in the local rap community. And after sending that picture to X thought it was funny and said he was going to use it as the cover. Kid Pronto said, "I was smoking, I just put it in my nose, took a picture, and sent it to the group chat as a joke." When Look at Me began to go viral over a year later, X and Kid Pronto were actually both fighting legal.
Bro, that's crazy, bro. X was really like everybody call him corny now, but back in the day, bro, he was on that. He was really
Issues, with X in jail and Kid Pronto allegedly on the run when X got out. Because of this, XXXTentacion let Kid Pronto stay at his house. Eventually, police started showing up at the house and X talked Kid Pronto into turning himself in. Halfway through his time in jail, Kid Pronto found out that X had died and decided to dedicate his life to music when he got out. In 2019, he got in trouble again after apparently stabbing someone multiple times. This is when he began to go viral. Some people theorize that he also converted to Islam because of the head covering he was
he was insane. I didn't know he was insane like that.
wearing, but he said this wasn't true. He briefly got out of jail after this and released a song called First Day Out, which got some buzz, but not much. Eventually, though, because of this, he was actually sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was 16 at the time of the stabbing, but since it had occurred over an argument, they said it was attempted murder.
That boy said 2031. Hmm.
Tried him as an adult, and then yeah, he got 10 years. So it's a pretty crazy story behind one of the most iconic covers in underground rap history. And while Kid Pronto knew what he was getting into, Keith Roy Yearwood had no clue. Biggie Smalls' debut album Ready to Die was released in 1994 and is considered one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, with iconic hits like Juicy, Big Papa, and a lone feature from Method Man. However, before his next album was even released, Biggie was tragically murdered, which makes the names of his first two albums pretty eerie, especially with the first one being Ready to Die. Regardless, to some fans, the first image that may come to mind when they think of Biggie is the baby with an afro pictured front and center on the cover of Ready to Die. Lots of people rightfully assume that that was actually just Biggie as a baby, especially since it's a pretty
That's what I thought, honestly. I don't know. I didn't really think too much into it because it's like, now that I'm thinking about it, wouldn't him being a baby, wouldn't that be in like black and white? But like, nobody thinks that deep.
common trend with rap albums to have Baby You on the cover. However, it's actually a photo of a now grown man named Keith Roy Yearwood. After speculation from his fans, the truth was revealed in 2011 when the New York Daily News tracked down Keith Roy, who at the time was an 18-year-old senior in high school. Keith Roy told the news he was happy to reveal that he was the Ready to Die baby. He said, "I just want people to know that's me. The truth is finally coming out." Before the news came out, the actual identity of that baby was one of hip-hop's biggest mysteries. Even the album's graphic designer had no
Bro, he should have kept the fro. I don't know what he was thinking. He just has a lineup all even. He should have kept the fro, bro. His hair would probably be like down to his back. His hair would probably be down to his butt, actually.
no idea who the baby was. He said that ended up being one of the most asked questions of all time, originally thinking that the baby was just the son of a hairstylist who worked at the record label. In fact, not even the photographer had any clue, saying he assumed it was a friend of someone's friend's kid who had this cool afro. Funny enough, Diddy, who was the head of Bad Boy Records, which had signed Biggie, had no clue who the kid was either. The diddler explained, "That was a baby we just found. We did a little casting for somebody that looked like Big." And while Bad Boy Records couldn't find documents to confirm the child's identity, Keith Roy and his mother later confirmed that he was indeed the baby by sharing a stack of baby photos and papers from the child modeling agency. Another question that people ask Keith Roy when they find out he was the baby on this cover is how much money he made from it. And he only got $150 for 2 hours of work. And let's be real here, he probably never even saw that money. What's a baby gonna do with $150? And at least Keith Roy got to find out he was on the cover, because the fish from Big Fish Theory by Vince Staples never got to find that out.
You mean to tell me he only got $300 for being on that cover? Yeah, they cooked you on that one. Yeah. Bro, nowadays, if that were to happen in 2026, people are taking that to court like crazy. Like they're gonna try. People are so greedy now, they're not taking that. If you're a popular artist like him, say goodbye. They're getting like 70%.
He tragically passed away a few years later. That was a joke. We're not talking about animals in this video, but we do know what happened to the baby from Nirvana's Nevermind. Also, real quick, I just have to address the video. In 1991, Nirvana was launched into the In 1991, Nirvana was launched into the stratosphere with their hit single Smells Like Teen Spirit. Shortly after, they followed it up with their album Nevermind, which controversially featured an image of a naked baby swimming towards a dollar bill attached to a fishhook. The band's label even expressed concern about the image due to the infant's being visible. And when they went to Kurt Cobain about potentially changing it, he said he would only cover it with a sticker which read, "If you're offended by this, you must be a closet." But what does the baby on the cover think about this now that he's all grown up? Well, unlike Keith Roy, he's actually had a pretty rocky relationship with Nirvana. The baby floating towards the dangling dollar is Spencer Eldon, born months before Nevermind was released. One day, Spencer's parents received a phone call from a local underwater photographer, Kirk Weddle, asking if he could photograph their son for a project. His parents, who were friends with the photographer, agreed and were paid just $200, which little would they know this would be one of the best-selling and most recognizable album covers of all time. At first, it appeared that Spencer was not only perfectly fine with being the Nirvana baby, but also somewhat proud, since in 2016, to celebrate the album's 25th anniversary, he even recreated the photo, although this time, thankfully, he did it with his clothes on. Spencer mentioned in an interview,
I never knew the baby had his clothes off. I remember seeing the album cover, though. It was pretty tough.
Said to the photographer, "Let's do it naked," but he thought it would be weird, so I wore my swim shorts. And he also acknowledged the weirdness of the whole situation, saying,
"What is it like having the idea that a lot of people have seen my baby when I was a baby? Well, I'm not really a baby anymore, so it's, I have to like think it's not me or something, but
I never thought about that. Yo, what? Bro, I just thought about that. That's crazy that like the whole world dang near seen him like that when he was a baby. That's crazy. Never thought about it.
It's a trip. There's a lot of people that have seen my baby as a baby. I went to a baseball game on opening day at the Dodgers, and I was looking out at all the people, and I was like, had a moment where I was like, man, all of these people have seen my baby when I was a baby. So it's pretty crazy.
He even started to give subtle hints at the slight financial jealousy he had about the whole situation.
It'd be nice to have a quarter for every person that has seen my baby, but you know, there's all kinds of puns you could throw on that, but you know, maybe that doesn't matter, you know, it's cool to be a part of that recipe for success.
Which, since he only got paid $200, I think I can get it. I mean, I know it's not standard for artists to get royalties from album covers, but I don't think that'd be such a bad thing. But this wasn't the only time he recreated the image, with Spencer jumping in the pool to pose for the camera numerous times over the years. However, his relationship with the artwork turned tense just a couple of years later, with the now 34-year-old suing the band's estate over the image in 2021. In the suit, Spencer named the band's surviving members and the photographer, claiming that the image had been taken without his consent and was child porn, which he sought over $100,000 in damages for. However, his initial complaint was dismissed by a judge. Days after it was dismissed, Spencer refiled an amended complaint. But
yo, Spencer.
Mike Epps, look
I'm not trying to like be funny or nothing, but it's getting out of hand. You recreated this photo like 5 times now. You can't go back to the past now, brother. Like, calm down now. You're not getting your suing money. It's already too late. You're already an album cover. Call it a day.
A judge ruled against him a second time. Spencer didn't quit though. He appealed it again in 2023, with his lawyers claiming that the band's 30th anniversary re-release caused a new injury to him, which he could bring before the court. As I'm sure you can imagine by this point, it was dismissed again, with the legal back and forth seemingly having a chance to repeat this tattoo. I don't. And what makes this all more ironic is that in the original photograph, Spencer is chasing a dollar, which years later he keeps trying to do in these baseless lawsuits. Spencer could have used all of the clout he got from this for something good, maybe to benefit himself. However, he chose to waste it. Unlike Suki Baby, who actually used her album cover feature to boost her career. In 2022, Drake and 21 Savage, two of the biggest rappers in the game, teamed up for a collab album called Her Loss. And this album may not
I remember this album cover. I remember people kept talking about this person. That makes sense now. That's how she probably got famous.
be as popular as some others on this list, but the cover was quite contentious. I remember I was playing the new Modern Warfare when this album cover was announced, and everyone was hating on it. The Modern Warfare thing, I don't know why I remember that. That's just, I associated with that. But people thought the album cover was dumb. They thought it didn't make sense. They called the girl ugly, all sorts of things. Nobody knew who she was, and everyone was pretty confused. Eventually, some journalists did some digging and found out her identity. The cover was shot by a Houston photographer, Paris Aiden, and it was taken of a girl called Suki Baby. She was a nail stylist and adult dancer from Houston, and she also said she was really into tooth decoration, which I guess would make sense, but no one really knew why Drake and 21 chose this picture in specific. The photographer Paris said that OVO just reached out to him randomly. He said, Drake just saw the photo, I guess, and they asked if they could use it for the album. I shot that a long time ago. It was her profile pic, and he probably fell in love with what he's seen. But after everyone was talking about it for a while, the rapper Lil Yachty jumped in to say he picked the cover. You might be wondering, what's Lil Yachty got to do with this? Well, Yachty was actually one of the executive producers on the album and produced a lot of the tracks. On Instagram, he said, I chose this cover because this photo is so raw, so authentic, not fabricated. Suki can and will only be Suki. So basically they just randomly saw the picture and liked it, so they used it. On the flip side though, Suki gained a ton of followers on Instagram. I believe at the time she only had 30,000 and now she's at like 7.
Oh, she was already up there. 30,000 is pretty. Yeah, that's decent.
700,000, and she was able to turn all of this viral attention into something by positioning herself somewhat as an influencer, and she was also able to start selling grills.
She was Drake's album cover?
Hey.
You were? No way! Hold on, speak album cover. Can I point at your mouth?
I ain't gonna lie, like, they watched me work really hard for a lot of years.
Okay.
I got no recognition, no respect, no nothing.
No way.
I used to, like, get booted and stuff like that because for like
Booted?
modeling and shit, and they just gave me opportunity, and I was grateful.
That's amazing.
Yo, that's another thing I remember. Like, I've been seeing like models have to be 100% natural. And I heard this one dude say, as a model, you can't have a front taper.
Mike Epps looking
Yeah,
at.
I don't know about that one. That's kind of crazy to me.
Which is actually kind of cool considering before the album cover she said she was trying to start her own business. And with her now being at 700k followers, I'd assume she's doing alright. So there wasn't really that meaning behind this cover. Whereas Rage Against the Machine had a lot of meaning behind their self-titled album cover. Rage Against the Machine's self-titled album is a bit different from others on the list. It was their debut studio album released in 1992, and rather than just some random person being photographed in the cover, there was actually a very important reason for the cover they chose. The cover was a photograph by Malcolm Brown, which features a Vietnamese Buddhist monk whose name I'm not quite sure how to pronounce. But in the picture, he was setting himself on fire. There's actually an even more horrifying and graphic picture of this, which I don't think I can share on YouTube, but they chose a much more tame one. This picture was taken in 1963, and the reason the monk did this was to protest the corrupt president of Vietnam that was oppressing the Buddhist religion. This picture actually led to JFK withdrawing his support for that president. So, like I said, this picture has a lot of meaning behind it. The reason Rage Against the Machine chose this picture was similar to a lot of the themes of their music, which was very politically charged, anti-establishment, and all that sort of stuff. So to me, this picture is interesting because to many you probably
Yeah, I don't really know who this is. Self-titled. It looked like he had Wix.
We just assume it's a random picture that's edited with flames on it, but it's actually a very powerful image with a huge story behind it. It doesn't quite fit the premise of this video since he tragically passed away when that picture was taken, but I thought it was worth including because I thought it was a cool, powerful, and interesting story. And like I said, that album cover has a lot of meaning, whereas Deftones' next cover hardly had any. Deftones is an alternative rock band formed in California back in the late 80s, most popular for their albums White Pony, Diamond Eyes, and Around the Fur, which is the album cover of Focus. Around the Fur was released in 1997, and along with the music itself being pretty memorable, the album's cover is also known pretty widely across the industry, which has left many fans wondering, why did they pick this cover, who is the girl in the picture, and where might she be today? Well, the girl pictured is named Lisa Hughes, and unlike the Nirvana baby, her presence on the cover along with the shoot itself was pretty unplanned. Photographer Rick Kozik, who at the time mostly worked with skateboard magazines, took the photo on a whim. After shooting for Deftones while recording some music, Rick was invited back to an apartment where the Deftones members
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is by far the worst album cover on the list so far.
lived for a party. Throughout the party, he was taking a bunch of pictures just of like some behind the scenes of the music type of thing, and that's when a somewhat random friend
Now that I'm thinking about it, have you ever just like looked at something like and just been like, dang, this would probably be a tough album cover?
of the band sitting in a jacuzzi caught his eye. Apparently without asking, he walked up to her and took the top-down close-up bikini shot, which ended up being one of 2 photos she was in that night. For years, Deftones fans wondered about the girl on the cover of their fan-favorite album, and for a long time, that's all they could really do since not much was known about her. However, in this case, Lisa
Oh, I just peeped. That wasn't the album cover. It's the girl. Okay, never mind. I take that back. This one is actually tough. I like this
His
album
identity
cover.
was not a total mystery, since the band had to track her down for permission after going through the photos of the night, and in an unlikely turn of events, they decided to go with that one. Ironically, Lisa didn't have a computer at the time to approve the photo, so Deftones record company had to fax her a copy, which she was happy to approve. In almost 20 years since her last interview, Lisa was recently found and interviewed again in 2017 alongside the photographer Rick. When asked to introduce herself, Lisa said, "I'm a kick-ass little woman from Western Washington. I'm in my 40s and feel amazing. I have a kick-ass job in the medical field. I love music and going to as many shows as possible. I love every kind of music you can think of, and yes, of course, I love the Deftones." Later in the interview, when asked about the moment the photo was taken, Lisa shot down a long-running rumor that it was unconsensual in any way. In fact, she said she's extremely proud to be in that picture. While Lisa originally was at the party since she was friends with Deftones guitarist Stephen Carpenter, she has since lost touch with him and the band. And
Imagine if they didn't need people's consent, like to have like a album cover, and you just getting on like SoundCloud, or you just see like a random SoundCloud rapper with like a picture of you doing God knows what as their album cover. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, what would you honestly do? Would you sue? Would you like?
while arguably not nearly as iconic, there was a similar situation with Playboi Carti's self-titled album. In 2017, Playboi Carti released his self-titled mixtape or album or whatever you want to call it. At
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it.
the time, Carti was new to the rap scene, but he was quickly becoming a fan favorite and a controversial artist.
Let me go back. This album cover right here, this is Chef's Kiss. This is something you usually wouldn't see. Like, you got Cardi right here. You got her and her, whatever, whoever they are. You got them in the bed. Like, this is what album covers are about. This album cover is tough.
At the time, Carti was new to the rap scene, but he
Iconic.
was quickly becoming a fan favorite and a controversial artist. In 2025, Playboi Carti is one of the biggest rappers of all time, with one of the most influential albums in recent years. But his self-titled album also had a lot of hits. Not only did it have his breakout single Magnolia, but it had tracks like Woke Up Like This featuring Lil Uzi Vert, fan favorites like Location, and my personal favorite, New Choppa. Not only that, but Carti was extremely controversial because he came out doing like a very anti-lyrical sort of thing, and this is when people were hating on mumble rap, so it was a really big deal. And to rap fans like myself, this is one of the best projects to come out of that whole SoundCloud era. And again, the album cover isn't necessarily iconic or anything, but the reason it's popular is pretty funny, which is mostly because people have been thirsting over the girl in the cover and dying to know who she was. Specifically the girl on the left, because you couldn't really see the girl on the right. Regardless, people started searching for her and trying to find out who she was, and there was actually a surprising story behind it. So the girl on the cover was actually one of what seemed to be many models that were chosen for a photo shoot. Funnily enough, it was shot at the Clout House, since Cardi was friends with FaZe Banks. If you don't know what that is, that was basically when like Rice Gum and people like that all lived together. And it looks like
What? I never knew it was this much lore.
they were going around throughout the house doing the photo shoot. There were multiple other girls in the photo shoot as well, but the one whose face made the cover was a model named Ayanna Lewis. She's a model and influencer who actually I think deleted her Instagram or got it taken down, so I'm not sure what she's up to nowadays. But it is a pretty simple story behind this cover, and it's the fact that she was just a model hired for a photo shoot, and it looks like she went on to have a modeling career after this album cover as well. However, the man in the
Modeling with no IG is crazy.
background of the Abbey Road album cover had quite the opposite experience. Alright, now this one I'm bending the rules of the video a little bit, but I thought this was also an interesting story. Of course, the Abbey Road album cover obviously features the Beatles walking across the street, which is a pretty simple concept, especially compared to some of the others in this video. But what a lot of fans began to wonder and even make theories about was the man pictured in the background. This mysterious guy just lurking around in the back. This was specifically attached to the Paul is dead theory, which alleges that the real Paul McCartney died back in the 60s and was replaced. I covered this theory way back in the day, and with the length of which people will go to support these things, it makes sense that this mysterious guy in the background got looped in. There's other theories or symbolisms or reasons people think he's back there, but the answer is actually quite simple. The guy, later identified as Paul Cole, was a salesman from Florida who was only in London for the holiday. He was also only on that road because his wife went to a museum which he did not care to go see, so he stayed outside, which is when he became a part of history. He recalls seeing the photo shoot happen and saying that they went across like a row of ducks and even referred to the stars as kooks. Ironically, Paul Cole didn't even recognize the musicians in the moment, so it was all pretty strange to him. He explains the unique coincidence saying, "I say to people, you don't realize it, but you're talking to a person whose picture is in millions of homes throughout the world." Paul explains the reason he didn't recognize them is because he only really listens to classical music, further explaining, if they were on the television, I'd flip to something else. The only reason he ever found out he was featured in the iconic album cover was by chance. His wife, an organist, purchased a copy of Abbey Road so she could learn a song off of it for a wedding she was playing. That's when Paul Cole spotted it in the house, claiming, "I did a double take and said, hey, that's me." And while other people have tried to claim that that was them in the background, Paul's story is actually substantiated. And while he passed in 2008, the legend lives on. And it only ever came out because a local paper asked for people to write in their craziest stories about the Beatles. So while theorists can try to make him into some creepy figure standing in the background, that cover will never be nearly as creepy as Korn's self-titled album. Korn has been known to have some pretty wild album covers with a wide array of varying styles. You could argue that some of them are pretty creepy, and their cover for the self-titled album Korn is no...
Yo, I never knew this Korn or whatever was a band or whatever. I thought it was just like a clothing line or whatever. 'Cause I used to see people with like Korn on like hoodies and stuff. Never knew what it was until today.
Exception. The front pictures a frightened little girl on a swing looking up at a shadowy figure, and the back showed an empty swing, so kind of weird. Together, the images were about as wild as the music itself, but what makes the album cover even creepier is that the child pictured was actually a member of Korn's extended family, the niece of Immortal Records rep Paul Pontius. The cover's photographer said that apparently, when the album came out, Paul was in the doghouse with his family. Paul might have got some shit, but he realized it was just a cover. Fortunately, the girl had no idea it was this disturbing molester deal. So obviously, getting some flack from your family for this isn't that surprising. I mean, he put his niece in this creepy cover. And at the time, Justine Ferreira, his niece, was only 8. But his niece had no idea that was going on. She said, "I just remember being at the park with this guy, Dante Ariola, the co-art director of the shoot and the owner of The Menacing Shadow, who's really nice. Paul and his sister were there for the hour-long playground shoot where the photographer told Justine to look scared. The whole concept was actually the band members' idea, which they often joked about when confronted over its controversial nature."
It's kind of.
Dang, at least he got his family, because like you'd hope your family doesn't sue you for something. But if this was anybody else, he'd be getting sued like crazy.
To show you like the dark side of everything that's innocent, pretty much, you know, because without this, It's an innocent picture. But when you add the shadow, it's the dark side to the picture. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Kind of like the unknown of.
Do you think it could be misinterpreted, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, by people that have no clue.
Yeah, but you can understand how people could get a little upset about something like this.
Well, let him. Why? Is he doing anything?
He's not doing nothing.
Is she doing anything?
You know, that's her dad
No.
carrying the horseshoes.
Yeah, he's getting ready to play some horseshoes, and he's asking her if she wants to play a game, but the sun's in her eyes, so she can't see who it is, and all he's saying is, honey, you want to play
You
some
just jump
horseshoes?
to one conclusion or another. You need to step back and look
So
at
then
the
why not just
think
put
you should
a
think about
picture
you.
of anything,
Are
a
you
tree
okay?
or something?
because we like that picture.
We like horseshoes.
Justine was paid $300 for the photo and says she wasn't allowed to see the album cover until she was in 8th grade. She said, I heard my parents weren't too happy, and my mom wasn't keen on punk kids recognizing her little girl in the supermarket, but I think it's cool. I got some modeling under my belt. Eventually, she graduated from New York University in 2009 with a degree in communications, and she actually admitted to not really
Dang, she's kind of bad. No,
being
I'm
a
just
fan
kidding.
of porn, but she did say she hopes to work in the music industry one day. If you like this video, you might like my video.
Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed that video. I liked it. Hope y'all like it and subscribe.